So I picked up another pellet gun, like I needed another pellet gun. Anyway, this is the Umarex Fusion 2 that made some changes over the Umarex Fusion 1, which I already have. This is it. I'm going to show you some things I like about the new model, and some things I don't like about it that they've changed. But anyway, let's get to unboxing this and have a look at it. Comes with a 4x32 scope, El Cheapo. No frills, just a cheap scope to get you shooting, and that's what it'll do, it'll get you shooting. They have added a 9-shot rotary magazine. Why 9? I don't know, instead of 10 like, you know, they did the gauntlet. But anyway, 9-shot rotary magazines. Having multi-shot, that's kind of an improvement, I guess, if, you know, if you like a multi-shot. And this is it. Kind of a tactical look. They've changed the stock quite a bit. It is not like old stock at all. Nothing on this gun appears to be very similar to the other gun at all. I don't know internally if there's anything similar to it, but anyway, completely different. They've added this triangle shaped moderator on the end of it that they're really proud of being really quiet. They call it silence air moderator. Anyway, the old one really wasn't loud. As a matter of fact, I thought that was very quiet. Anyway, this one, I'll show you closer in a little bit, has a removable tube with 2 CO2 cartridges in it. It's not that easy to remove when it's got CO2 in it. So when you take it out, you lose a little bit of CO2 that's in the gun, but this still has 2 12-gram CO2 cartridges in it, and a little check valve so it doesn't all leak out. So you can take this out and do something to the gun, or just however you want to store your gun. That comes out, doesn't lose all the CO2 inside, just what was inside the gun. So the reason they made that removable is this gun will also accept the 88-gram CO2 that screws into that the same way. And you have a large CO2. People don't fancy these very much because you can always find the 12 grams on sale, and these things are kind of expensive compared to the 12 gram. These things are a little bit on the expensive side and really don't have that many more shots. It is probably more economical money wise to shoot the 2 12 grams and just change them out a little more often. Anyway, one thing I did find kind of interesting, both these are made by Umarex, but I have over here the Umarex air javelin I've been working on, doing some different stuff with, and this adapter with the 2 12 grams fits this gun. Helps in cock the gun first. Anyway, that adapter fits in this gun, so if you don't use the 88 gram in this and stay with CO2, if you have both of these, you can use this adapter. Somebody also sells one of these to adapt to these and a couple of other guns. Anyway, this isn't the topic today. So, they changed some stuff on this. You still have to unscrew this little thing here to pierce the cap and unpierce the cap, remove the cap. But on the old model, that was a very poor system they had for holding this. This one came right out, very easy, right? The other one had a cap on the end. You had to screw this down to pierce it, and then you had to it would pierce the one in the back. Then when you screwed the top down, it would pierce the other one. Then it would leak, and you had to turn it backwards and forwards and whatever, and get it set where it wouldn't leak. So that's all right in the instructions, just about. So anyway, it was a very poor design they put on that thing, and I've upgraded this one. This one now has a Foster fill on it, so you can use this tethered to a paintball tank at factory pressures, or you can bulk fill this with CO2, and it'll hold, you know, a little bit more than what the 12 gram CO2s, 2 of those would hold. You can bulk fill this and fill it from a large tank. So I've changed that so there's no more tearing up the O-rings. If you ran out of CO2, you'd have to make sure it was all the way out and then let it sit for a couple of hours so that the O-ring would swollen up, so it would go back to its normal size before you took the cap off, because you had to kind of pull the cap to get it off, and it would tear up the O-ring. You almost needed an O-ring every time you changed CO2, and almost. If you weren't really patient and let it sit for a couple hours before you tried changing it. So that was kind of a pain to do that. But I upgraded this one for my own purposes. And this one, they said they have fixed that problem, but they still have this screw-on piece to pierce the CO2 inside. So I'm not really a fan of that. I wish they'd have put a lever on it to pierce it to go back, or something, because this is very hard to turn when this thing's on the gun. It's almost better to try to load the CO2 into this thing off the gun and then screw this back onto the gun. Anyway, also this is just a little rubber cap that goes on. This is the little piece you have to grab and turn inside here. So anyway, I'm happy that they've done something different with the CO2 on the gun. They changed the bolts a little bit. Instead of a little round knob on the bolt, this one's actually knurled and cylinder shaped, and doesn't have very much cocking effort at all. It's very light. The gun doesn't have a very hard hammer spring hit to it. It's supposed to have an adjustable trigger. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. This model does not have an adjustable trigger, and has standard, you know, classic round knob on the bolt. About the same cocking effort. Not much to it. Anyway, but it's single shot. Very easy to load, but it's still single shot. Where this came with, you know, two magazines. I'll do a side by side, a couple of pictures of it. See if I can get those in the video. Anyway, let's get up here and move the camera and get a little bit closer look at this thing. Alright, here we are. Hopefully we can get a little bit better view of this thing. This is the new bolt design. You can see that? It's a little knurled cylindrical knob instead of a round smooth knob that goes on it. And you just simply pull the bolt back. Load your magazine. The instructions are pretty clear on how to load it. The one thing I didn't like was the magazine goes in from the left side, not the right side. I'm kind of used to magazines going in on the right side. But this one goes in on the left. Close the bolt, it's ready to shoot, index it. Pretty simple magazine setup it's got in it. Like I said before, I don't know why the 9-shot, but that's what they decided to put in as a 9-shot magazine. I guess to keep the size of the magazine down just a little bit. If you'll notice, from this gun, the little gap between the barrel and the forearm, the Fusion is very tight, very low profile and very tight. So they had to raise that thing up to accommodate the use of a larger CO2 that would go in here in place of the adapter it comes with. To use 2 12 grams. And I'm sure to get the magazine a little higher, they've also changed this over to a Picatinny rail, and I guess a lot of people like the Picatinny rail. I'm kind of a dovetail guy, but a lot of people like the Picatinny rail. There certainly are a lot of better rings out there than there are for a dovetail on a low budget, you know, and much cheaper. The thing I don't like is that this entire receiver, the whole thing, is plastic. The dovetail, this entire receiver is plastic. It has one screw to remove the stock. And you take that screw out, you want to put the safety on, because this lever needs to be in the down position for the action to slide out of the stock. Anyway, if you try to put that back in the stock with that lever in the up position, it'll get stuck inside there. You have to pull it back out, point this down, and it has to be on before you can remove it or put it back in. Anyway, it has a little bit of a shrouded barrel. It looks a little bit bigger right there. I don't actually know what the barrel diameter is compared to the other one, but the old Fusion has a pretty rigid barrel on it. It's not a little flimsy, tiny barrel. It's kind of a rigid barrel, and the gun shot really good for me. And as you can see, this triangular shaped moderator that they are calling Silence Air. It's not terrible looking, but I really don't know. I'm not really a fan yet of the triangular shaped moderators. Anyway, all plastic stock. Not much on this gun. Exterior to take care of as far as rust. The instructions do give you some points to lubricate this thing and take care of it, maintenance. Again, the two 8-round rotary magazines, they're spring loaded. You would put the first one in and then index it, put the second one in, index it, and the third one, so on, to get all 9 in it. And a little closer look of the 4x32 scope that it comes with. Just a basic, you know, no frill scope. Has a ultra cheap turrets. They do work. This is just a duplex reticle. Very simple, easy duplex reticle. Nothing fancy about it. Came with some pretty basic instructions on how to set scopes up, mount them. So nothing fancy. Nothing fancy in here. You're not gonna learn any big secrets in this thing. Cleaning cloth. Alright, on to the adapter. The same end as the 88 gram CO2, right? But this has a check valve in it so it doesn't lose all of your CO2. They've changed the O-ring in it a little bit. You pull this plastic cap off, it just slips over here, I guess for looks. You back this part all the way out. Load your 212 gram CO2s, one down, one pointing up. That's in the instructions also. Twist this back on all the way down until it quits. And then as you turn this, it punctures the CO2. Screw that all the way down. Put the cap on it. As I said before, this is almost easier to do off the gun and then put this on the gun. Which once it's got CO2 inside here, this becomes a little bit harder to turn in the gun, but it's still easier than trying to turn this cap underneath the barrel where you can't hardly get any grip on it. So I'm going to set it up, mount the scope, maybe get it sighted in a little bit, see chronograph wise if it gets anywhere near what the rated 700 feet per second are for it. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Anyway, we'll see. Some things I do like about it, some things I don't. I don't like the plastic receiver on it. The trigger is adjustable. I have adjusted the trigger on it. The trigger out of the box was absolutely terrible. It's a 2-stage. Not much of a first stage in there, but you can feel just a little bit of the first stage and hear it click. Anyway, I've adjusted this one so that if you move it anywhere after that, it shoots. Just a little bit of pressure and it'll shoot. But it is not adjustable for trigger weight. Only the pull. The tighter you screw turn that screw in the back, the farther back the trigger moves. Anyway, that lessens how far you have to turn it to get to shoot. But you do have to take the gun out of the stock to do this. There are no instructions in the instruction manual on how to adjust the trigger. You just remove this one screw, and when this whole block comes out, there will be a screw right behind the trigger. A little tiny 2mm Allen wrench screw. And as you turn it in, you'll see the trigger starting to move backwards. Anyway, if you get too far, the trigger won't catch. If you don't get it far enough, it's still going to have some more creep. So, you know, adjust it accordingly. And obviously don't point it at anything until you're sure you've got it adjusted where you want it. And that's it. Let me get the scope mounted, and we'll get the chronograph set up and see if it does any good numbers with like a RWS 7 grain, you know, wad cutter or a really light pellet. We'll see how close it gets to those numbers. Alright, we've got 2 targets set up at 30 yards. I'm fixing to take a few shots with the new Fusion 2 and the original Fusion, my old gun. See how they both group. See if we can zoom in on that. That's about all closer I can get for right now, but you can see that's the target on the right. Now let's try the old Fusion on the target on the left. Go up there and see what this looks like. The Fusion 2 and the Fusion 1. I believe we got a little bit better group out of the Fusion 2. I'll have to check the CO2 and the Fusion 1. It usually doesn't shoot that bad. Maybe my bulk fill has started leaking. But that's not bad. Neither one of these are anything to write home about, but that's not bad. I'll take that. Alright, so in conclusion, that's what I've got for the Umarex Fusion 2. One thing I wanted to point out that I didn't catch until I was mounting the scope, didn't really look. That is a all plastic scope. The tube's plastic, both ends are plastic. I wouldn't doubt if the glass is plastic. Anyway, seems to be okay. Who knows? Anyway, I would not put that on a Springer if I was you. But it is an all plastic scope. It shot really well. Nothing, you know, 10-meter air rifle worthy, but pretty good little blinker. 10-shot magazine. Doesn't feel bad. Doesn't shoulder bad. Do a little offhand shooting with it later. See how that works out. And this is that's the target for comparison. That's not a bad group. That first one was a little high and the rest of them settled in. You know, CO2 guns will do that to you when you shoot them. If you don't give it, you know, 30 seconds or whatever, you know, between shots for the CO2 in the tank to warm back up after you shoot it, it'll kind of happen, but they kind of settle in. They don't drop real bad. You see the other 4 shots are real close together on it. And this target was from the Umarex Fusion 1, and it's got some way down here. It's a pretty good vertical string, and just to confirm that it was something CO2 related, I brought it back in, I shot it across the chronograph, and it was like 300 and something feet per second. So it's out. My fault. I should have checked it before I went out, but I didn't. Anyway, that's what I got for the Umarex Fusion 2. If you like a fun little plinky gun, this is pretty good. This was for sale at a sporting goods store in South Haven, Mississippi for like $119. And anyway, I don't know how you can go wrong for $119 for a multi-shot CO2 gun that will shoot 12 grams or the 88 gram. It's light. The trigger adjusted really easy, really nice. The weight, I didn't see where it's adjustable for the weight. Again, I didn't see anything in the instructions that told how to adjust it. I just took the action out of the stock and figured it out, because it says adjustable trigger on the box, but there's nothing in the instructions. Anyway, give one a shot if you haven't already.